Dear Sega, your recent pre-order and release date announcement of the Sega Genesis Mini was met with praise from much of your community, and rightly so. For too long has your Sega Genesis products been made and distributed by companies other than you, leading to a standard of quality well below what Sega fans expected and deserved. Now that this new release is handled by the people best qualified to show it the most respect, Sega fans everywhere have much to be excited about. I am also extremely happy to see you branching out and showing some much needed love to Sega franchises that have been long dormant. The excellent Wonder Boy remakes were an incredible addition to my library. It's good to see ToeJam and Earl back, and I am all kinds of excited to play the upcoming Streets of Rage 4. But like many Sega fans, I feel you have neglected an important portion of your past for far too long, the Sega Saturn. I understand the Saturn was not a financial highlight in Sega's history, especially compared to the Sega Genesis and Mega Drive brands. It was, however, one of Sega's most incredibly creative eras for its games. There's Shinobi Legions, the continuation of the great arcade and Genesis series that added new moves to already fantastic gameplay. There's Lunacy, the Atlas full-motion video game that threw off the negative shackles of those types of games and gave you an adventure actually worth playing. The mech action series Gungriffon sits on the Saturn untouched by newer generations. Mr. Bone's brand of wacky art, music, and gameplay was unique at the time, and just begs to be loved and hated by a whole new set of fans everywhere. Iron Storm was a World War II strategy game loaded with hundreds of hours of gameplay. The Legend of Oasis is the continuation of the Genesis classic Beyond Oasis that many gamers never had a chance to play. Clockwork Knight 1 and 2 are platformers with a fun story and easy to get into mechanics. The Shining series of games would see many entries on the Saturn. Shining Force 3 was an epic strategy tale spanning 3 games. Shining the Holy Ark was a first-person turn-based RPG, and Shining Wisdom was a more traditional adventure game. Each one of these represented a specific type of RPG style, giving Sega fans of all types something to enjoy. Sonic Team's Burning Rangers remains one of the Saturn's coolest exclusives. Something of a technical marvel at the time, you simply do not see many games about futuristic firefighters, even now. Astal was a painting come to life, a 2D platformer of superb visual and audio presentation. Deep Fear was Sega's answer to Resident Evil, implementing gameplay mechanics that wouldn't be seen in other games of its type until years after it. Blazing Heroes was a strategy game with an interesting story and many hours of gameplay to satisfy any fan of the genre. Fighters Megamix took numerous Sega franchises and made a fighting game that should have been a regular series for Sega, yet it's trapped on the Saturn to this very day. Panzer Dragoon Saga is perhaps the most famous Saturn game that has no modern way to play it. Its epic story and unique gameplay has been requested by thousands of Sega fans for years. Dragon Force 1 and 2, my favorite games on the Saturn, continue to have no modern sequel or ports. Looking over at my Saturn library, I see dozens more games that have no way to be played unless you have the original hardware. Thing is, many of these games are either made or owned by Sega, just sitting there begging for either a port, a sequel, or both. Some fans will shout that we need a Sega Saturn Mini to present all these great games to a new generation. Some will say make a compilation and release them on modern platforms like the PlayStation 4 and Xbox One. Others will want a sequel to these games with modern graphics and enhanced gameplay. I say do something with them. Anything! You have left so many of your games in the past untouched, unported, and unappreciated that some Sega fans feel completely abandoned by you. Your arcade lineup alone is the thing of legends, filled with countless fan favorites that are trapped and unreachable by a huge percentage of your fan base. I understand that Sega needs to take care of Sega, and modern franchises are your bread and butter, but take a cue from one of your old rivals. Your classic IP can often be the foundation of your modern successes. Inside many current PlayStation and Xbox fan beats the heart of a gamer that once owned a Sega Master System, a Sega Genesis, a Mega Drive, a Sega Saturn, a Sega Dreamcast, an arcade fan that dumped countless quarters into your arcade games. These legions of fans never stopped loving all things Sega. They simply haven't had access to anything other than the countless Genesis compilations you release. Sega's history is so much more than these games, and the few arcade hits you touch upon every so often. My love of Sega did not start with the Sega Genesis, nor did it end there. It began in the arcade where you made hardware and software unrivaled for nearly 20 years. It continued with systems like the Saturn, which hold to this very day some of your best work. I want to see Sega show these platforms more than just a passing interest. I want you to show them and your fans the respect and appreciation they deserve. What you get in return may surprise you. I'm Sega Lord X. Thank you guys for listening, and I will catch you next time.